Hey, how you doing? I'm Michael Faba, and here's another bodybuilding posing lesson.
This tutorial is about the most famous bodybuilding pose, the front double biceps. Let's begin by building the pose from the ground up. Now there are two common leg positions for the front double biceps. Legs together and legs apart. The legs together variation is the traditional position. It follows the principle of closing the gaps, making our physique appear more compact. To contract your legs properly in this variation, place your heels close together, pointing your feet out slightly. Imagine that there are two lines on the ground at 45 degrees from each foot. Now hold an imaginary leg extension along that line so that if you were to lift your foot off the ground, this would happen. Continuously holding this imaginary leg extension will ensure that you keep your legs contracted, allowing for the deep cuts in your quads to be clearly visible. This is what I mean when I talk about dynamic posing. There are constant forces at play that hold our muscle in a tight, contracted position, much like the beams of a suspension bridge. The legs apart variation has developed in more recent times during prejudging. It gives an hourglass-like illusion to the body, whereby the minimum waistline is made clearly visible, which is not so obvious in the legs together position. We all know how important a V taper is on stage, and having your legs apart enhances its appearance, compensating for creating larger gaps between our limbs that would usually diminish our muscularity. To position your feet correctly in this variation, remember that axle that comes from the top of your head down to the ground. Now bend your knees slightly to become more agile and extend one leg to the side, opening it slightly to reveal the length of your teardrop. Now once you're in position, perform that imaginary 45-degree leg extension mentioned earlier to bring out the cuts in your quads. Now let's build the upper body part of the front double biceps pose. Now the first step is to contract your shoulder blades together as much as possible. The second step is to flex your biceps so that you close the angle of your arms completely. The third step is to flex your forearms by performing a wrist curl. The fourth and final step is to spread your lats as you would in a lat spread pose, like this. Notice how your elbows raise to the final position once the spread is complete. For female competitors, make sure you flare out those flashy nails, aligning your little finger with your forearm so as to show the faces of your nails to the audience. The elbows should create a subtle V formation as opposed to a horizontal line. This makes the pose more aesthetic and helps the human eye begin building the image of the hourglass illusion. Building the front double bicep pose with this method will have you replicating the pose perfectly every time. I've seen people practicing posing with someone else repositioning their elbows, telling them to lift this elbow here and drop this elbow there, but that someone isn't going to be on stage to correct your posing. I suggest that it's easier and much more effective to learn poses as a series of simple steps.
I'll now show you how to strike this pose using different entrances. Feel free to use your favorite one the next time you're up on stage. That concludes this posing lesson. I hope you enjoyed it, and remember, practicing posing is fun cardio.